Hello, my name is Zach with the City and County of Denver. In this video, I'll be talking about how building owners can report renewable energy for compliance with the Denver Building Performance Policy. Building owners can use renewable power generation to help their buildings reach their 2030 EUI targets. For example, if a building needs a 30% reduction in energy use to hit their target, but can only manage to reduce energy consumption by 20%, the remaining 10% can be covered by renewable generation. If you have a renewable energy installation on your building site, or you procure qualifying off-site renewable power, you will receive full or partial credit for every kilowatt hour the system generates, regardless of whether or not you retain the renewable energy credits, or RECs. The renewables credit will be calculated annually based on generation that occurred in the 12-month performance period being evaluated. For example, for the 2024 target, which is evaluated using the benchmarking data from January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024, a building can receive credit for the renewable generation that occurred during that same time period. For campuses that have renewable installations that are not physically connected to a particular building, we will work with the building owner to credit the kilowatt hours generated among the buildings within the campus portfolio. If an owner can demonstrate that the building's renewable energy sources are a confidential business practice, the owner can submit a confidentiality request for the renewable credit submission to be kept confidential and not subject to KORA requests or included in open data disclosures. The renewable credit is broken down into two categories based on how it is installed or purchased. On this slide, we'll talk about long-term installations or contracts, which have no limit in the kilowatt hours that could be submitted. If it's an on-site or off-site installation, you'll have to provide proof of ownership in the form of an interconnection agreement or contract. If it's an off-site installation owned by a third party, it needs to be provided by Xcel Energy or located in Public Service Company of Colorado territory. Subscriptions, leases, or shares must have a term of 5 years or more and must be renewed every 5 years going forward. Denver is offering limited credit for short-term contracts or subscriptions for renewable generation to assist with the interim targets only. If you're interested in using renewables for compliance long-term, you have time to get long-term procurement agreements in place by 2030. You will need to submit evidence of the subscription, lease, or shares only in the Colorado PSC territory through Xcel Energy, and the purchase time period has to equal the 12 months being evaluated. For the 2024 interim target, the generation can equal up to 20% of the building's electricity usage and must be purchased from 2024 through the next target evaluation. For the 2027 interim target through to the next target, the generation can be up to 10% of the building's electricity usage. For 2030 and beyond, short-term contracts are not allowed. This slide lists the most frequent renewable scenarios common to Denver. For solar and wind generated on-site, you're typically using Xcel Energy's net metering or solar rewards programs. The Solar Rewards Community Program, formerly called Community Solar Gardens, are more typical in multifamily buildings. In these situations, a multifamily building would get credit for their tenants' purchases of subscriptions to the solar garden or wind source programs. But the owner would have to gather the kilowatt hours purchased by each tenant and aggregate the numbers to enter the total into the submission form. We are working with Xcel Energy on ways to aggregate those numbers at the system level to make it easier to collect the data, so check our website for an update on this process. The last item on this list refers to a short-term subscription program from Xcel Energy that would have those short-term limits mentioned previously. Most of these programs are at capacity at the beginning of 2023, but Xcel Energy has several plans under consideration by the Public Utilities Commission, which if approved would provide new capacity in 2024. To report renewable power generation, go to the Find a Form page or the Renewable Credit page on the Energize Denver Hub website to find the Renewable Credit Submission form. The Renewable Credit Submission will require some work ahead of time to pull the necessary information together. The submission form will ask for the type of installation or contract you're reporting, whether or not the RECs were retained, the maximum capacity of the solar panels if it's an on-site installation, and the total kilowatt hours generated for the 12-month performance period. You will also need to submit 2 attachments, the proof of interconnection agreement or contract, and 1 month's example of a bill or report from that year that shows the kilowatt hours generated in that month. Owners should keep all 12 months of reports that show the monthly generation in their files in case we request it. Note that if your building received renewable energy from more than one source, you will need to fill out a form for each one.